Is Keir Starmer secretly destroying Brexit? It's time now for our head-to-head. So last night, the Prime Minister arrived in Berlin to meet with Germany's Chancellor Olaf Scholz to agree terms on a brand new treaty set to be signed by early next year. But Starmer claims this is not about reversing Brexit.
Absolutely clear that we do want a reset. I've been able to repeat that here today, a reset with Europe, a reset with the EU. That does not mean reversing Brexit or re-entering the single market or the customs union, but it does mean a closer relationship on a number of fronts, including the economy, including defence, including exchanges.
Well, the PM's heading to Paris tomorrow to meet with Emmanuel Macron as he plots a wider reset across the EU. So is Starmer actually plotting to reverse Brexit? Joining me now to debate this is political advisor Pablo and former Tory Minister Neil Hamilton. Thank you very much, both of you. Great to have you on the show. Neil, I'll start with you. Are we kind of being a bit lied to here? Because I'm not sure that Germany and France can unilaterally actually agree something. Doesn't it have to be the EU that agrees new arrangements with us?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So I'm all for bilateral agreements with other countries. That was part of the great benefits of Brexit, that we were enabled to enter into favourable trade agreements with every other country in the world, which previously we couldn't do because the decisions had to be taken by the bureaucrats in Brussels. And, we're now, in theory anyway, a sovereign independent nation. Tories didn't actually do very much to diverge from EU law. But what we are technically in a position to enter into such deals, Germany isn't. And so Scholz is a dead man walking anyway. He'll be out of office next year in the German general elections. He's on a popularity level of 17% in the polls in Germany. So whatever Starmer agrees with Scholz is likely to be overtaken by events anyway. But, it's all part of some kind of PR stunt, really, for Starmer. He's been all talk so far since the general election, and, they won't be able to achieve anything of their real objectives unless they decide to go back into the EU, maybe not in a formal sense, but certainly in an informal sense. They've got even less desire than the Tories to diverge from the corpus of EU law. And that's the real problem, that we haven't actually had a full Brexit as yet. OK. All
right, Pablo, I'll bring you in. Yeah, look, maybe you have a different view on this, but, the general consensus appears to be that Starmer can say what he likes about signing some deal with Germany and France, but that pretty much can't happen unless the EU signs it off. So this is a new deal with the EU, isn't it? And that is watering down Brexit if it means closer relations on a variety of different things, no?
Well, I would love it to be, but Starmer has ruled out the single market, customs union, freedom of movement. So I don't think it's destroying Brexit, whatever the benefits of that are that we seem to be worried about losing. But I do think that it's about strengthening alliances and cooperation and, frankly, rebuilding trust with one of our closest European allies. I love our country, but we really have embarrassed ourselves on the world stage.
Why?
So this isn't about reversing Brexit.
No, go on. So just quickly, sorry, on that. No, why have we?
Consequences.
Can I just ask you, Pablo, seriously, why have we embarrassed ourselves? We nearly handed Gibraltar back to the Spanish without a shot being fired. We allow EU citizens to come freely through airports. They're the ones who are making us queue up in a different queue, even though, to be honest with you, every time I've gone abroad, there's not even been a flipping queue. Just don't tell Lorraine Kelly that. In what way have we embarrassed ourselves?
We behaved like children during the Brexit negotiations. It took us nearly a decade to figure it out. And the ONS, the government's own figures, show us that it's costing us £1 million every single hour. That's the average Briton is £2,000 worse off. There are nearly 2 million fewer jobs because of Brexit, with regions like the North being hit hardest. And net migration, which, let's not forget, was one of the key themes of the campaign, is up. More people coming into the UK.
And obviously that was one of the big problems that we had with putting Remainers in charge of Brexit, I imagine. But Neil, just on this then, Starmer's talking about, oh, great, we've got a closer relationship when it comes to defence with our EU partners. Well, brilliant. Didn't the Germans just send what is basically a load of rainbow-coloured helmets to the Ukrainians, whilst we were sending them actual hardware? If it wasn't for us, Putin would have probably rolled through Europe, wouldn't he?
Of course, well, Britain was able to take a unilateral decision right at the start of the war between Ukraine and Russia to support the Ukraine in a very material way. That couldn't happen in the EU because they had to have agreement in the Council of Ministers to do that. All the 27 members that are left in the EU. We have acquired a freedom which the others have lost, and Germany has been a great foot dragger, of course. They've signed up to, in words, support Ukraine, but all the way along they've been dragging their feet about A, the supply of weaponry, and B, the use that can be made of it by the Ukrainians to prosecute the war, which they never sought, and they're the victims of. So, the last people that I would want to have on my side are actually people like Olaf Scholz, who are really so timid as to be a liability rather than an asset.
OK. Pablo, if this is, well, it is going to be a new treaty, Starmer's, championing it, and he's saying that it should be ready by the end of the year or early into next. And it is a complete reset. Again, his words, a reset with our relationship with the European Union. Shouldn't that be put to a public vote?
Listen, as someone who campaigned hard for a second referendum for a people's vote, I would welcome it. I do think that we need to be careful about opening up conversations about referendums on absolutely everything, because they are very, very divisive. And even at the moment where we see 60% wanting to rejoin the EU, I think we still need to be careful around that, because it's a really divisive experience. We saw that in 2016. And we saw what happened when you don't clarify exactly what people are voting on. For example, people voted to leave the EU. We all know that. We voted for departure, but there was no conversation about the destination. We didn't know what life outside the EU was going to look like. So I think we need to be a bit careful about kind of throwing everything to a referendum.
OK, look, Neil, I do put it to you that, you know what, if we do end up getting a slicker, better trade arrangement with the European Union, and that might turn out to be better for our economy, I mean, what's the problem?
Well, the EU doesn't do negotiation. They're interested in giving ultimatums to people: sign here or else. That was the whole story of Theresa May's ridiculous attempt to have a deeper relationship with the EU. It was never going to happen. The whole point about being out of the EU was that we could take these decisions for ourselves. We don't have to enter into negotiations. They want everybody to sign up to the corpus of legislation that they've imposed on their own people. One of the great advantages of Brexit is we can decide to make laws in our own interest, not in the interest of others. And so Starmer doesn't sign up to that. He wants to be part of the global elite, technocrats who run the EU in Brussels. It's the reverse of democratic. And Brexit was all about democracy, restoring the power of the British people to decide their own destiny.
Well, Keir Starmer had that famous clip, didn't he, about preferring Davos to Westminster and all of that stuff. He obviously never believed in Brexit. It's fair enough, you don't have to believe in Brexit. He never really said he did. So, he's not really necessarily lying to us about all of that. I think many people have concerns that this is just paving the way. The other aspect of it, of course, is he's not exactly a master negotiator, is he? Just ask Mick Lynch and all the other union barons. But there we go. Look, both of you, thank you very, very much. The political advisor, Pablo O'Hanna, and Tory Minister, former Neil Hamilton. Right, who do you agree with? Is the PM secretly destroying Brexit? Elliot says, I don't think so. We voted to leave the EU, not to cut off all future relationships with them. There's no reason we can't be good friends. We just don't want to be roommates anymore. For Elliot, I love your optimism. I really